Good morning, everybody. I'm Stacy with Stacy's Organizing and Decorating for Life. I'm here to help you organize your thoughts and decorate your perspectives. So today our topic is going to be about how not to argue, but to express our feelings, and process our triggers from reality, right? So we can learn to trust. So if you like that that's our topic today, it's really about how we communicate our feelings. Because what we express from our inside becomes our reality outside. So how do we express our feelings? So if you like, again, that that's our topic today, please hit the like and subscribe button below. But before we get started, I want to welcome you back. If you listen to these videos on a weekly basis or whenever you listen or watch these videos, I want you to know that I love and appreciate you and your support, the time that you spend, giving me your time, because your time is valuable. So I appreciate that. I appreciate those of you who value my time and compensate me through the monetary, because I'm not monetized. So if you would like to share these videos so that I could get more subscribers, you need to have 1,000 subscribers to be monetized. And I've just recently lost a couple, but it's okay. You win some, you lose some, and that's what these videos are just about, to help us and guide us, to where we can be more able to be more unified and learn to trust. But if you're new to this channel, I have to let you know that I'm not a doctor, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a scientist, any of those things. But sometimes I share along the lines of those things because I believe everything's divinely connected and wholly directed. And so if it helps me, I think it might help you too. What I actually am is a life coach, but that term's getting kind of old. So what I choose to call myself is a life midwife. I help y'all navigate through these different challenges and changes in life to help us get a better perspective, better thoughts, to go within and feel comfortable in our own skin, to be able to realize our dreams and our goals and our desires. So I have a webpage called stacyforlife.com. On this webpage, there's a description of the services that I provide. Really, it's about dealing with addiction, codependency, and grief, because all of us in some way, shape, or form have to deal with that, whether it's our own or somebody else's. So, please check that out. Okay, so now let's get into our topic today about how to, learn to trust ourselves and to trust others too, and to be heard, and how to express our words in a better, clearer way with more compassion that will draw others to us and hear what we have to say, rather than repel and push them away. And that's what we oftentimes do, right, when we come from our triggers. So why it's very important to realize what are our triggers and what are our wounds. Because when we can understand we're being triggered, that this is maybe not our reality today. This gives us the feelings that we have today, but it was from something yesterday. There's a saying, we can bleed on those who do not cut us. And this is where this comes from, is when people are wounded, they also say hurt people hurt people. This is why all these sayings come about, is because we all have wounds, and there's so within is so without, and so when we can realize that unity, that these polar things are part of our growth process, that they wouldn't be here. We can't have one without having the other, and when we can not demoralize ourselves and demoralize others because we're fallible, then we can live in peace. Our first initiative when we're hurt is that we want to say, I'm hurt because you did this, and this is blaming. And it can become defensive, and so we aren't going to get results from an argument. We might, but when we become defensive, we're each protecting our turf and protecting our ground. So what I'm learning, is that how to trust, we have to be willing to be vulnerable. And to be vulnerable requires to have compassion. Compassion for ourselves, because if you've been in a narcissistic relationship or a relationship where you didn't feel heard, and there's many different ways we can be in relationships and not feel heard, because when we're each and all coming from our own wounds. And that's where these defenses come from, is when we're defending our wounds, and we feel like we have to protect ourselves, because maybe when we were children, we didn't know how to protect ourselves from these things. So when I say as adults, is this serving me any longer? Because a lot of the things that I have had to say, defects, shortcomings that I have had to remove from my life or realize first. I had to realize those which are, part of the root word reality is what we realize. And I had to realize that these things no longer serve me. So this is when we get into the opposites. When I was talking about the polars. If I'm feeling insecure, what I really want to feel is secure. So how do I get from point A to point B? If I'm feeling jealous, really what I want to feel is admiration. One feeling doesn't feel good, but the other feeling does. So how do we get from this feeling to that feeling is to process why and where we feel this way in the first place. And it didn't just happen this day. So when I'm going through my process, I understand that I'm going through my process, and I've learned to be quiet. I've learned to have that trusted person, faithful friend or sponsor or, life coach or therapist, whoever, that I can process these things with, because chances are they know my history, that I've been able to be vulnerable with them, because we can't be vulnerable with everybody, right? And so it's learning who we can and cannot, and being able to have that person that we can trust. Because learning to become compassionate, actually, when we feel hurt, is a positive, and it's a positive, and it's a practice, and it's an exercise for many of us. Because if we were children and we didn't feel heard, and then we get grown and we finally feel safe enough to throw a tantrum, well, there's another process and another practice to that, is that the tantrum repels people from us, okay? When we start blaming and shaming other people for our feelings, that's not cool. It's just not. Because if we're adults, if we're over 21, we have choices, and those choices can guide us. So that's really what we need to think about, is we have to stop and ask ourselves, this is what I have to do when I'm in my process, because I get triggered. I can get triggered. As long as we're on this earth, we're supposed to grow and learn. And so sometimes these things, we think that we've worked on them, we think that they're gone, and we think that they're not going to come up again, but they can manifest in a variety of ways, and it's interesting. I've learned to say, oh, isn't that interesting, when I'm feeling a certain way, after I calm my ass down, because when I get triggered at first, I'm not understanding if this is reality or it's not, because I know that I feel this way, but I don't know if what I'm feeling is real. We say, there's all kinds of sayings, feelings aren't facts, and so just because I'm feeling a certain way doesn't mean it's a fact. It means that I am indeed feeling that way, but it doesn't mean that that's the person's intention that I may be feeling that way about. In fact, probably at least 90% of the time, it's not their intention when we're coming from our triggers. So when we process, we get to understand what my wound is. My trigger isn't necessarily the reality, but the wound is the reality. It doesn't mean that we weren't hurt in the past when we talk about our wounds. And so this is where compassion comes in, and finding a trusting person. If you have a trusting person, that's good to help you process your triggers, whether you can be triggered by somebody, say, who you feel is smarter than you. Sometimes we get triggered and get jealous of these kind of things when we feel like somebody may be smarter than we are, or get more attention than we do, or they, it's in recovery, it's about, our triggers usually stem from our fears, and our fear is that we're not going to get something that we want, or that we're going to lose something that we have. So we have to ask ourselves, is that where my trigger's coming from? Is it coming from pain, neglect, abandonment, whatever we feel like we didn't get in our past? Is that where this is coming from? Then we can look back at another time and say, did I feel this way? When did I feel this way before? And how did I get through it? And that will give us our empowerment and esteem, because we feel powerless, like I said in last week's video, when we can't figure things out. So difference between our triggers and our wounds is when we understand that this pain from a past, another person can't heal that for you. That's an unreasonable expectation, to expect another person can heal that from you. However, in your choices, you get to choose the people that you choose to share your wounds with, because after you process this wound, when I have felt this before, and you process this wound, if you're lucky, you'll have a person that you can trust, whether it be in a relationship, whether it be just a friendship, however, whether it be in your work relationship, finding a person that you can trust that can hear you. You know, oftentimes our wounds are from not being heard, like I said before. And so when we've expressed our feelings before and we've been shut down or devalued, and what I mean by devalued is when people told you you didn't feel that way, you know, or they shut you down and started talking about their feelings, that you caused them to feel their feelings the way that they are, and that you don't even get heard. And it sometimes can be crazy making. It is definitely devaluing when you're trying to express your feelings. Now, if you're coming from your triggers, people aren't going to hear you. Like I said before, that repels them when you start blaming other people for your feelings. I've learned in the communication a long time ago, and I'm still learning to communicate, is that I feel like this when this happens. I feel like this, not you. You know, I've said this before in videos. So I feel like this when this happens, to own our feelings, you know. And if you have a trusted person, they can, you know, say, I understand you feel like that, and this is what's happening, and you can have a talk. If you have someone who's yelling at you when you express your feelings, that's not a safe person. If you have somebody who's telling you you don't feel those feelings, that's not a safe person. A safe person is somebody who allows you to feel your feelings and are willing to hear you. While they can't heal you, we all want to be heard, and that you need to do the same for other people. I was just in an incident yesterday where I had to stop the people so that they could, because it just started going, they're talking, and I'm trying to shut them both up, you know. And this is pretty common. I'm not judging. This is pretty common when people are coming from their wounds and not let go. When we're processing things, we're able to understand where these wounds come from and to let today be today. And that's where we can deal with our wounds and understand that these wounds, you know, may have been triggered, but they're coming up for a reason, for us to heal and for us to grow, you know, so we don't have to experience that aspect of the wound anymore, you know. So even to feel safe enough to be heard takes practice, you know, and sometimes I don't know how myself to feel safe enough to be heard as I get deeper and deeper and deeper, you know. And so this is the challenge for me still, is I'm learning to express my words, you know, not to hurt somebody else, but to be heard. So if I'm willing to learn, as I learn to value myself, because that's our value in our words, because when we go off on a trigger, we will tend to second guess ourselves after we calm down. If we calm down first and then express ourselves, see, that takes us from reaction to response. So if I'm willing to learn and value myself, the people in my life, I will learn to trust rather than guard. See, that's the thing, is when we're being triggered, we're trying to guard that inner child that's hurt. But when we learn to nurture that inner child, we're able to allow that healing and growth to come through. Yes, but I have to process first from my trigger, which is the guard, from my wound. There's no blame but acceptance in my wound and a willingness to grow through trust. Okay? When we've grown up and or had relationships with people who devalued our feelings by either shutting us down once again, shunning us, not allowing us to speak or be heard, there's no way we know how to communicate in a healthy way. There's just no way. We haven't learned that. So maybe it takes a minute or a bit to find the words, because what we saw or learned was not healthy. That's why we repeat the same if we are unwilling to heal and to learn. We may push people away with our guard of our wounded little child or adult. The secret is in the process. What is real? What really happened? And what do I feel? Remember, what is real? What really happened? And what do I feel? Is it valid? When we spew and haven't processed, we let off steam, but it's only a temporary relief. It didn't solve our problem. So processing is how we grow. Understanding our feelings, not what they should know. Right? Because when we get upset with people and these triggers, they should know this. No. You have to learn to communicate. Now, if we have exposed our wounds, through trust, and the same thing continues to happen, we then get to decide, is this a deal breaker or not? I used to have a counselor at the schools where I worked, and when we talked about relationships, we would talk about, is this a deal breaker or not? Do you feel the same thing is going to continue? Are you being heard? Is it a reasonable request or controlling? When I'm having my issues, I tell people I am working on this, because chances are I'm working on this. When we have issues and we're not working on this and have an expectation that somebody else is supposed to change, that's an unreasonable expectation. So when we taking responsibility for it is saying, I am working on this, because if you indeed are, because it doesn't feel good, hopefully you'll work on it, because you can't expect somebody else to work on your process. That's unreasonable, like I said. We don't want to second guess ourselves and be dishonest with ourselves. When we do that, others will be dishonest and second guess us too. So that's not what we want to do. That's another reason to process. And trust it may call for a negotiation. Okay? Negotiation is good, so you can feel safe and heard and the other person not feel controlled. See, when you negotiate, that's what we do. So I've explained this process to things. See, when we compromise, each person feels like they're losing something. But when you negotiate, each person can gain something. So I've explained the process, how to process things, and I hope that it was helpful. I share quotes on my Facebook page. If you haven't, followed me on Facebook, you can follow me at Stacy's Organizing and Decorating for Life, or at just Stacy Renee. But I tend to gauge people there. You might want to send me a message because of all the hackers and stuff like that. I don't just welcome people. I mean, you have to let me know that you saw this video. So I hope this has been helpful. I posted something about vulnerability. Vulnerability for me, it's not comfortable to know that I don't know how to express my feelings, but I'm willing to learn. See, this is a willingness. I'm willing to work on it. I'm willing to learn. And we have to understand that vulnerability, this is from our fellow Texan, Brene Brown. Vulnerability, she quotes, is the birthplace and innovation for creativity and change. Nothing changes till it changes, y'all. So people deserve to get to know the real me, not who I pretend to be. See, we get that false esteem when we just push people away by our triggers. But when I let people know that, I struggle with this, then I'm letting them know the real me. But I'm working on it, So we can't be heard if we don't say a word. That's passive aggressive when we think that they should know, So I hope, again, that this video has been helpful to you, and that these little quotes that I said will help you too. So when we're told to love our enemies, what if that means our own thoughts of separation? That's an enemy. Would that not be our enemy? I mean, it is, right? The only enemy, this was my quote yesterday, so I hope that you followed this video all the way through. The only enemy we have is ourself, as it is ourself that has us to choose not to like or love and accept someone else, right? So not to say we have to like everyone in every way, because there are indeed toxic people. This is where our choices come in. Because if someone's not hearing us, they're not hearing us, and we're not going to grow. We're just going to keep repeating the same show. So the key word is the choices. We get to choose what we give our attention to. So what will you give your attention to? I hope that this video has helped you to learn how to process some things. I'm going to repeat those questions one more time, okay? To ask ourselves when we're in our process. When we feel triggered, that we don't spew on somebody else, but we take a moment. Because we're going to take a moment. We can take the moment before, or we can take the moment after. But we need to take a moment, because that inner child is worth that moment. We don't have to neglect that inner child today, okay? So how we process this, once again, this is the process. What was it real? Is it real? What is real? Is it something from the past? So we take a moment and process that. When did I feel this way before? What really happened? And what do I feel? What really happened today? And what do I feel? You know, because what we see comes through here, but our subconscious is right here. So we have to really watch that we pay attention to what's here, the sunlight of the spirit, right? So we can see, feel, and hear it, what's really going on right now. Our process. So what really happened, and what do I feel? And is it valid? Is it real? So, because when we spew, we haven't processed, remember? So let's don't spew on people. Let's don't bleed on people who don't cut us. Let's don't spew on people. Let's don't hurt people, but do our process. So, because when we hurt other people, when we do all those other things, we hurt ourselves too. We second guess ourselves. So if we think about and process this stuff first, we can gauge then who we can trust and who we cannot trust. Are we feeling heard? And then we can make choices accordingly. And when we feel safe to express our words. Because we can't be heard if we don't express our words. It's infantilization. I have another video on that, when we expect people to know our wants and needs and desires and we haven't learned to express them. So again, I hope that this video has been helpful. I know some things are repetitive, but you know, if you knew how many times when I'm working with people that, and even for myself, that I've had to have something repeated to me, because the behaviors that I have to heal from were repeated behaviors. So I have to have that healing repeated sometimes too. So I pray that this has given you understanding for yourself and others, okay? Because we are all divinely connected and wholly directed. So we're just atoms and molecules bumping into each other so that we can find our peace. So we can be empowered. And so we can release any thoughts that no longer serve us or deserve us. So thank you for your time. I hope that this video has been helpful. I know that I've had to have some patience because they've changed the video format, how I do this. So this video will probably indeed be late. But, you know, it's about that consistency that it allows me to have integrity, you know, and to feel like, yes, I've done what I was supposed to do, whether anyone sees it or not. It's my intention and my motivations. So that helps in all my relations. I know, I got to stop with this rhyming. So it's good timing for me to do that. So I wish you much love and peace. And again, you can reach out to me if you have any ideas or topics or need any help with anything. If you feel connected to me, I would love to help you, be your life midwife. You can reach out to me at stacyreinick@gmail.com if you'd like to contribute to this channel in any sort of way, or contact me. Also, for my professional things, for your contacts and just emails or whatever you'd like to say to me, you can reach out to me at stacyreneeforlife@gmail.com. Okay? All right. Thank you so much for your time. I love and appreciate you very much. Okay, I'll see you next week. Thank you.